We've all looked up at the sky. It's blue, calm, endless. But have you ever wondered at what point that blue sky turns into outer space? If you could keep climbing higher, through the clouds, past the air, past the edge of the atmosphere, where exactly would you cross into space? Is there a real border between Earth and the universe? Or is it just something humans invented? From space, Earth looks like it's wrapped in a glowing blue skin. That's our atmosphere, a fragile layer of gases only about 100 kilometers thick. That thin blanket does everything. It gives us air to breathe, weather to feel, and protection from deadly radiation. But compared to the size of Earth, the atmosphere is almost nothing. If Earth were the size of an apple, the atmosphere would be thinner than its skin. And beyond that skin lies everything. Scientists decided to draw a line between Earth and space. It's called the Kármán Line. It sits 100 kilometers above sea level. Above this line, the air becomes too thin for planes to fly. There isn't enough atmosphere to support lift. Only rockets can go higher because they don't rely on air, only raw thrust. So 100 kilometers became the official border of space. Cross that line, and you're technically an astronaut. But here's the truth. The universe doesn't care about that line. It's not a physical wall. It's just a human-made number to make an infinite concept easier to measure. The atmosphere fades away in layers, like steps into the dark. First, the troposphere. That's where we live. It holds most of the clouds, rain, and weather. Above that, the stratosphere, calm, thin, and home to the ozone layer. Then comes the mesosphere, where meteors burn up. Above that, the thermosphere, where auroras dance and satellites orbit. And beyond it all, the exosphere, the last trace of air before pure vacuum. There's no point where the sky suddenly ends. It just gets thinner until there's nothing left to breathe. That's where Earth ends, quietly, invisibly. Many people think once you cross that line, gravity disappears. But that's not true. Even at the height of the International Space Station, Earth's gravity is still about 90% as strong as it is here. Astronauts float, not because there's no gravity, but because they're in constant freefall. The ISS is falling around Earth over and over again. They're always falling and never landing. So, space isn't a place where gravity ends. It's a place where motion never stops. As you climb higher, the color of the sky starts to fade, not from sunset, but from emptiness. At about 50 kilometers up, the air becomes so thin that sunlight no longer scatters. The blue fades to black, and even in daylight, the stars become visible. That's the moment where the world you know ends. It's not about altitude, it's about silence. Here's a strange fact. The edge of space isn't fixed. It moves. During solar storms, the upper atmosphere expands like a balloon. When the sun calms down, it shrinks again. So technically, the boundary of space changes every day. It breathes with the sun. Like Earth itself is alive, stretching and relaxing. Space begins where Earth decides to stop holding on. For most of history, space was just a word, something unreachable. Then came Yuri Gagarin, the first human to cross that invisible frontier in 1961. When he orbited the planet, he looked down and said, "The Earth is blue." That sentence changed everything, because from up there, he saw what no one on the ground ever could: how thin, small, and fragile our world really is. If you're waiting for an exact number, there isn't one. Space doesn't start at 100 kilometers, or 120, or even 200. It starts where the air ends, where the blue fades to black, where gravity loses its grip, and silence becomes the only sound. It starts where your lungs can't breathe, your voice can't travel, and the only direction left is up. Space begins not at a height, but at a feeling. The feeling of leaving home. So the next time you look at the sky, remember, the edge of space is closer than you think. Just 100 kilometers above your head. The sky stops being blue and the universe begins. We live right on the border of infinity, breathing within a thin, fragile bubble, floating in an endless sea of stars. And maybe that's the real beauty of it. We were born on the edge of space, and we were never meant to stay grounded forever.